The first thing I heard was coughing. Sharp, choking, heartbreaking little coughs from the kids playing in my backyard. Then came the smell, acrid and metallic, clinging to the air like poison smoke. And before I even had time to process it, I saw her, Karen, standing at the property line with a bright red chemical sprayer in her hand, grinning like she'd just won some kind of sick war. I froze, my stomach twisting. "What the hell are you doing?" I shouted across the fence. My voice cracked, half with rage, half with disbelief. She didn't even flinch. Karen tilted her head, ice cold, like I was an insect she'd decided to step on. "Your garden was attracting pests," she said with smug precision, as if announcing the weather. "I'm taking care of it for the neighborhood. You should be thanking me." Thanking her. My heart pounded. Behind me, my daughter was clutching her throat, gasping for air. My son's eyes were watering, red, his face pale. Oh God, what had she sprayed? My garden wasn't just flowers. It was tomatoes, cucumbers, herbs, food we ate, food the kids helped pick. And now their small lungs were pulling in toxic fumes. I ran to grab the hose, spraying down the garden and the patio, anything to dilute whatever poison she'd unleashed. The water hissed on the soil, steam curling upward, carrying that chemical sting. I could feel it burning my nostrils, my throat tightening. I choked back panic. "You're insane," I yelled at her. "You can't just spray my property." Karen smirked, adjusting her oversized sunglasses. HOA regulations clearly state all members must maintain their yards pest-free. Yours wasn't. I filed complaints. You ignored them. So I acted. My hands trembled. Pest-free. My garden had ladybugs, bees, butterflies, pollinators, life. She turned beauty into poison. And the worst part, she thought she had the right. The kids were coughing harder now. I scooped my daughter up, heart thundering in my ears, shouting for my son to follow me inside. The door slammed shut behind us, and for a moment the silence was shattered only by their ragged breathing. I dialed 911 with shaking hands. The dispatcher's voice was calm, professional. 911. "What's your emergency?" "My neighbor just sprayed chemicals into my yard," I said, gasping for air myself. "My kids are sick. They're coughing, struggling to breathe. Please, send help." The ambulance came fast, red lights flashing, sirens wailing down our quiet suburban street like judgment. Paramedics rushed in, masks tight on their faces, carrying equipment, oxygen tanks. They checked the kids, their movements urgent. I could hear one whisper to the other. "Likely pesticide exposure. Get vitals. Fast." I wanted to scream. Pesticide exposure. From my neighbor. In my own backyard. Karen stood outside, arms crossed, watching the whole thing like it was entertainment. I caught her mutter, "Drama queens," under her breath. My fists clenched so hard I thought my nails might break skin. Deputies arrived next, their cruisers crunching up the street. The flashing blue lights cast long, eerie shadows across the garden. The lead deputy, a broad-shouldered man with a stern jaw, stepped up to Karen. "Ma'am, put down the sprayer." Her laugh was sharp, ugly. "Oh, don't be ridiculous. It's just we'd kill her. Everyone uses it." "We'd kill her," I snapped, stepping forward despite my shaking knees. "She sprayed my vegetable garden. My kids ate from there. They're in an ambulance right now." The deputy's jaw tightened. "Ma'am, we need to see the product you used." Karen huffed, stomping toward her garage. The clatter of metal echoed as she dragged out a container the size of a gas can. The label glared back at us. Industrial-strength pesticide. Not for residential use. My stomach dropped. The deputy's voice went low and dangerous. "Do you realize this is restricted? Do you know what you've just done? Karen rolled her eyes. You people are so dramatic. This neighborhood is full of pests. Rats, raccoons, bugs. I was protecting the property values. Property values. My children were hooked up to oxygen tubes and she was worried about property values. I swear I almost lunged at her. But the deputy raised a hand. He looked at me, then at her and finally spoke. Karen, you're under arrest for reckless endangerment. Her mouth fell open. What? You can't arrest me. I'm on the Homeowners Association board. I have authority here. The deputies moved in. Handcuffs clicking. She shrieked, thrashing. The chemical sprayer rolling across the driveway with a hollow clang. This is harassment. I'll sue all of you. But no one was listening anymore. The sound of the cuffs locking was the sweetest music I'd ever heard. I leaned against the wall, my chest heaving. For a moment, relief washed over me, but then guilt stabbed at my heart. What if the kids? What if the damage was permanent? What if this wasn't just a bad day, but a life sentence of health problems? At the hospital, the kids were treated, flushed with oxygen and fluids. Doctors reassured me, it looks like we caught it quickly. No long-term damage expected. I broke down in tears right there, holding both their hands, whispering thank you over and over. But the nightmare wasn't over. 2 days later, I got a notice from the Homeowners Association. My stomach turned when I opened it. Violation. Failure to maintain yard to Homeowners Association standards. Fine $1,000. I almost laughed, but it came out as a bitter choke. After everything, after my children were hospitalized, Karen's arrest, they still had the audacity to fine me. I stormed into the next Homeowners Association meeting. Heart pounding. My puna and my hand. The board sat smug at the long table. Karen's empty seat like a stain. They looked at me like I was the problem. You're fining me, I said, voice shaking. For what? For being the victim of chemical assault. The president cleared his throat. The yard was not maintained. The incident, while unfortunate, does not negate Homeowners Association policy. My laugh cut sharp through the room. Unfortunate. My kids were in the hospital. She was arrested. And you call it unfortunate? Gasped. Murmurs. Neighbors shifting uncomfortably. I slammed my phone on the table. Screen lit up with the deputy's report. The product label. The arrest record. Read it. I snapped. Read how your board member nearly poisoned my family. The silence that followed was thick, suffocating. One by one, the board members' eyes darted away, guilt cracking through their arrogance. And then, the twist I didn't see coming. A quiet voice from the back. My dog died last week. He drank from the puddle near Karen's yard. Heads turned. A neighbor stood trembling, tears in her eyes. I thought it was just bad luck. But now I know. It was her chemicals. The room exploded. People shouting, pointing fingers, demanding answers. Years of petty fines, harassment, control. Suddenly they were unraveling. The truth spreading like wildfire. Karen wasn't just a tyrant. She was dangerous. By the end of that meeting, the vote was unanimous. Karen was removed from the Homeowners Association board, permanently banned from holding any position of authority. But justice didn't stop there. The county pressed charges. Reckless endangerment, environmental violations, even civil suits from neighbors who'd lost pets, who'd been sick, who'd had gardens ruined. Karen's empire of control crumbled in weeks. And me, I rebuilt. Slowly, painfully. Every time I saw the garden bloom again, I thought of the nightmarish sound of my kids coughing. Every time the kids laughed outside, I felt gratitude, but also fury at how close I'd come to losing them. Karen thought she could control everything. She thought spraying poison made her powerful. But in the end, She poisoned her own reputation, her freedom, her future, and sometimes, late at night, I still hear her words echoing in my head. You should be thanking me. God, what a cruel joke. Would you call it karma? Or simply justice? When someone so arrogant finally faces the full weight of the law. Thank you for listening, and if you want more stories where justice catches up to homeowners association Karens like this, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. I didn't even make it halfway down the block when I saw her already standing there, arms crossed, mouth tight, nostrils flaring like a bull ready to charge. Again, I muttered under my breath, stomach nodding. What now? Karen. The self-appointed queen of our HOA, she wasn't on the board. Hell, no one had elected her to anything, but that didn't stop her from acting like she ran the entire neighborhood. You could barely sneeze without her stepping out of her porch to document it. But today was different, because this time she accused me of vandalism. I'm not kidding. She came marching up my driveway like she had a badge and backup, waving her phone in the air like it was some kind of evidence. You scratched my car, Marcus, she barked. Don't even try to deny it. I saw you on my Ring camera. I blinked. What the hell are you talking about? She shoved her phone into my face, showing a blurry figure walking past her driveway. Could have been anyone. The quality looked like it came from a potato. You think this proves something? I said, backing up. That's not even. It's you, she snapped. You've had it out for me ever since I called the city about your garbage cans being out after 10 a.m. I laughed. Lady, I don't even care about you. That was the wrong thing to say. Her eyes went wide. Her mouth gaped like she just witnessed a murder, and she stormed off yelling something about taking it to the board. I stood there, heart pounding, my hands clenching into fists. I should have walked away, should have gone inside. But no, my pride had teeth and it was biting back. Later that night, I got an email from the HOA subject line, vandalism incident under review. I nearly choked on my beer. She actually filed a complaint, officially, claimed I keyed her car, and even worse said I was a threat to community safety. What the hell? I paced in my kitchen for an hour. Who does this woman think she is? And the worst part? I knew I didn't do it. I was working from home that day. I had receipts. I had phone logs. But that didn't matter, not when the HOA was stacked with her old golf buddies and bridge club friends. But here's where it gets good. Because 2 days later, I finally checked my security cameras. Yeah, I've got one facing my driveway and another pointing toward the street. I hadn't looked because I didn't think I needed to, but something was nagging at me, so I queued it up, rewound to the night before her accusation. And there she was, 1:13 a.m., the streetlight barely catching the gleam of her silver Lexus pulling up quietly, no headlights. She parked right across from my house, got out, and me heart dropped. She walked right up to my car. I hit pause. What the hell was she doing? I hit play. She crouched down, reached into her coat, pulled out what looked like my go-to Slim Jim. You know, those lockout tools cops use? She slid it between my window and door. I sat there frozen, watching this woman, the same woman who accosted me in my driveway, try to break into my car. She didn't get in, thank God. But she messed with the lock for nearly 5 minutes before walking back to her car and peeling off. I was shaking. My mouth went dry. Oh, Karen, you messed up. I saved the footage, made copies, even emailed it to myself twice. The next morning, I printed stills and drafted a letter. Not just to the HOA board but to the police department. I could barely contain myself as I walked into the HOA's next monthly meeting. Karen was already there, of course, front row, smug smile, acting like she just won a lifetime supply of control. She didn't see me come in. Not at first. But when the president called my name and asked me to address the board, she turned around slowly like a snake sensing something behind her. I walked up, calm, measured, and then I handed over the USB drive. Before I respond to the allegation, I said, loud enough for every nosy neighbor to hear, I'd like to submit footage from my security cameras. I believe it might clarify who the real vandal is. Karen blinked. What? What footage? What is this? The president raised a brow. plugged it in. The video started playing on the shared screen they used for budgets and PowerPoint slides. The room went dead silent. There she was, clear as day, wearing a red windbreaker with HOA Volunteer Patrol, stitched on the back like some kind of bootleg cop. The moment the screen showed her jamming the Slim Jim into my car door, a neighbor gasped. Someone else muttered, "Oh my God!" Karen turned white. "That's not what it looks like," she stammered. Two dropped my keys. I was checking to see if someone else left their car unlocked. "Bull," I said, my voice flat. "You accused me of vandalism, tried to drag my name through the mud, and now everyone sees who the real criminal is." She stood there, stuttering. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. The HOA president looked pissed. "Karen, this is serious. You broke into a resident's vehicle." Then came the knock on the door. Two police officers, one of them holding a printed copy of the footage I emailed to their department. "Karen Monroe?" one asked. "You're being detained for attempted vehicle burglary and filing a false police report." The room went dead quiet. Karen tried to protest, tried to spin it. No, this is a mistake. 2M part of the HOA, I protect this neighborhood. But they cuffed her right there in front of everyone. And the sound of those metal cuffs clicking around her wrists, it was better than a standing ovation. I let out a slow breath. My hands were still shaking. But my God, it was finally over. Or so I thought. Because just when I believed she couldn't sink, any low-era certified letter showed up at my door. From her lawyer. I nearly spit out my coffee when I saw the return address, some low-rent legal office off the freeway. Inside, a cease and desist claiming I had defamed her by showing the video publicly. You have got to be kidding me. This woman who tried to break into my car, who accused me of vandalism, who got arrested on camera, was now trying to play victim? I laughed. Like an actual out loud, head thrown back laugh. Then I called my buddy Sam's, a civil defense attorney and one of the best I know. He looked at the letter, then at me and said, "Tell her to go ahead and file. You've got more grounds for a lawsuit than she ever will." Damn right I do. Turns out, Karen being arrested wasn't even the worst of it for her. A few weeks later, the HOA launched a formal review. They couldn't technically kick her out of the neighborhood, but they could ban her from any position of influence. No patrols. No volunteer committee. No say in HOA matters. That hit her harder than the handcuffs. The cherry on top, multiple neighbors came forward after the footage dropped, admitting they'd also seen Karen acting shady. One said their car had been mysteriously scratched months ago. Another swore they saw her sneaking around their backyard with a flashlight late at night. So yeah, Karen's little power trip days? Over. And as for her lawsuit threat, I filed a counterclaim for harassment and malicious prosecution. Let's just say the tables aren't just turned. They flipped, spun, and crushed her like a falling grand piano. You think people like Karen get away with everything forever? Nah. Eventually, the truth claws its way out, and when it does, it bites hard. So next time your HOA Karen tries to come for you with false accusations and fake smiles, keep your head up, your camera rolling, and your receipts ready, because karma might just show up wearing a badge. And hey, if you loved that wild ride of justice, hit subscribe on my YouTube channel. We're just getting started with more real stories and HOA takedowns. You won't believe this. I swear, if someone told me this was fiction, I'd laugh in their face. But nope, this mess was real. It all blew up one bright morning when Karen, the notorious HOA president, stormed into our quiet neighborhood like she owned the place. Again. But this time, she went way too far. I mean, she forged court papers. Forged. Can you even imagine the nerve? And the worst part, she tried to hold a fake trial in our community clubhouse to fine me over a totally made-up violation. What? Who does that? Seriously, who? I remember sitting there, heart pounding like a drum in my chest, watching her strut around with that smug look like she'd already won. "You'll pay for your infractions," she sneered. But the whole thing was a sham. I mean, she handed out those court documents like candy, but they were nothing but fraud. Forged signatures, fake dates, the works. I could feel the anger bubbling inside me, hot and sharp, almost enough to make me yell right then and there. But no, I had to stay calm. Had to play her game. At least for now. The clubhouse was packed. Neighbors whispering, some confused, some terrified, others clearly siding with Karen because, well, she's the HOA president or so they thought. But the tension? Oh, it was thick like fog rolling in. You could almost hear the silent screams, the muffled gasps whenever Karen slammed her gavel or rather, a plastic toy hammer she grabbed from her kid's playroom because the real one was nowhere to be found. Pathetic, right? Order. Order in the court. Karen bellowed, her voice cracking slightly but still loud enough to command attention. This hearing is now in session. The defendant, Mr. Andrews, is charged with repeated violations of HOA regulations. She held up the forged papers, waving them like some kind of victory flag. The fine is $1,500. Due immediately. My mouth went dry. My lawyer was nowhere to be seen because this wasn't a real court. This was a scam, a circus, and I was the main act. I glanced around, desperate for support, but many neighbors looked away, embarrassed or scared to get involved. Still, a few brave souls met my eyes with a flicker of doubt. They knew something wasn't right. Karen, I finally spoke up, my voice steady despite the rage inside me. These documents are forged. This trial is a fraud. You have no authority to do this. A few gasps echoed around the room, the atmosphere crackling with suspense. Karen's face twisted into a snarl. How dare you accuse me of forgery? She hissed. You'll regret this. And here's where the twist kicks in. Just as she was about to ramble on, the clubhouse door slammed open. In walked the real sheriff, yes. The sheriff flanked by 2 deputies. The room froze. You could hear a pin drop. Karen Miller, the sheriff said firmly. You're under arrest for forgery, fraud, and impersonating a court official. Wait, what? The entire room erupted in shock. Karen's smug grin evaporated faster than morning mist. This is a mistake, she stammered, her voice cracking like broken glass. I'm the HOA president, I have the right. No, you don't. The sheriff cut her off, pulling out handcuffs. You forged legal documents to extort money from your neighbors. We've been investigating for months. I exhaled hard, the tension breaking like a dam. It was surreal watching her struggle as they cuffed her right there, in front of everyone. The woman who acted like she ruled our neighborhood was just a fraud, plain and simple. And finally, karma had caught up with her. But let me back up a bit. You need the full picture because Karen's scheme was more twisted than you think. It started a few months earlier, when I got a letter slapped on my door. A notice from the HOA saying I owed a huge fine for unauthorized landscaping modifications. Funny, because I hadn't touched the yard except for watering. I called the HOA office, but the lady on the phone was vague, evasive even. Then the letters kept coming, more fines, more threats, all escalating. Something smelled rotten. I wasn't the only one. Turns out, Karen was targeting anyone who questioned her authority, or worse, those who refused to pay her fees. A few neighbors confided that they'd been harassed too. Some even intimidated into paying up just to avoid trouble. That's when I decided enough was enough. Digging through HOA records, I found some serious irregularities. The meeting minutes were doctored, signatures didn't match, and guess what? The court documents Karen presented in that fake trial complete fabrications. I contacted a real attorney who confirmed my fears. These were criminal acts. Meanwhile, Karen was spinning her web tighter. She held secret hearings, threatening fines, evictions, even towing cars illegally. She played the power game hard. It was like living under a dictatorship, but in our own little cul-de-sac. I couldn't believe how many people just accepted it or worse, joined her. Fear, maybe, or maybe a twisted loyalty to the idea of control. But the breaking point was that fake trial. It was the last straw. When the sheriff showed up, it was because of a tip from one of Karen's own cronies, a neighbor who finally got fed up. They handed over emails, photos, even recordings of Karen bragging about her scam behind closed doors. The evidence was overwhelming. Watching the whole thing unfold felt like a scene from a movie. The disbelief, the shock, the whispers, and then the deafening silence as Karen was led out in cuffs. She kept shouting, "This isn't over. You'll all regret this." But nobody listened. We just stared, numb but relieved. And here's the kicker. After the arrest, the HOA board immediately resigned. They wanted no part of Karen's mess. New elections were called, and finally, our neighborhood started healing from the chaos. People came forward with stories, and the community banded together to reclaim what Karen had stolen: our trust, our peace, and yes, our dignity. Looking back, it's wild to think how close we were to losing everything to one person's greed and lies. Karen's downfall wasn't just about legal justice, it was a reminder that power abused always comes with a price. And sometimes that price hits harder than anyone expects. I still get chills remembering that day. The fake trial, the forged papers, the dramatic arrest. It felt like watching a nightmare unravel in slow motion. But it also taught me something important. Don't let fear silence you. Speak up. Fight back. Because sometimes that's what it takes to make justice real. Even after Karen was taken away, the ripples from her fraud didn't just disappear overnight. There were lawsuits, oh yes, plenty of them. Neighbors banded together, filing suit against her and the corrupt HOA board for the chaos, stress, and outright theft she caused. The legal battle dragged on for months. But finally, justice wasn't just a word, it was real, cold, and undeniable. Karen had to pay back every dollar she tried to scam out of us, with interest and penalties. That money, it went straight into a community fund to repair the damage she left behind. The whole ordeal changed our neighborhood forever. No more whispered fears or silent threats. Instead, there was laughter again, kids playing outside, and neighbors chatting like they hadn't done in years. We rebuilt more than just fences, and Lanceway rebuilt trust. And for me, it was a powerful reminder that no amount of power or bluster can shield you from the truth. Lies and forgery can crumble like dry leaves in the wind when people stand together. Karen? Well, she's no longer HOA president. That's for sure. She's facing multiple charges, and with the lawsuits piling up, her reputation is beyond repair. Funny how someone so obsessed with control ended up completely powerless. I almost feel sorry for her. But some people have to learn the hard way that playing dirty doesn't pay off. Sometimes I wonder what went through her mind when those deputies slapped on the cuffs. Shock? Anger? Fear? Maybe all three. But one thing's clear. She didn't expect to get caught, and she certainly didn't expect her own community to fight back so hard. The whole thing was a roller coaster from disbelief to anger, then to hope, and finally triumph. It's like we were trapped in a soap opera, except this one had real consequences. I've learned to never underestimate the power of standing up for what's right. And believe me, when your peace and your home are at stake, silence isn't an option. I still get messages from neighbors who say they were inspired to speak out because they saw what happened to Karen. That feels good. Like maybe, just maybe, sharing my story could help someone else who's stuck in a nightmare with their own Karen. So here's the deal: if you want to hear more stories like this, full of drama, justice, and that sweet taste of karma served cold, hit that subscribe button on my YouTube channel. Trust me, you don't want to miss the next lawsuit saga or the next HOA horror show. Sometimes the truth is stranger and way more satisfying than fiction. Thanks for sticking with me through this wild ride. Remember, never back down. Keep your eyes open, and if someone's forging court papers to fine you, call the real authorities and fight back. Because in the end, justice is louder than any forged gavel. You need to shut this nonsense down right now. That was the first thing out of her mouth. Not even a hello. Not a hey, how's it going? Just a shrill voice, a furrowed brow, and the unmistakable energy of someone who believed the world owed her obedience. I turned slowly from the grill, tongs in hand, mouth still half full of smoked brisket. "Excuse me," I said, blinking like I just heard thunder in the middle of a sunny day. Two women stood outside the gate to my backyard, both in sundresses, both holding little dogs that looked as bitter as their owners. The taller one, with a bony arm and sun hat, pointed a trembling finger toward my friends. my family, my smoker, my house. This violates HOA regulations. Section 14B. No open flames within 15 feet of a fence line. And noise pollution. This is unacceptable, she screeched. The other one chimed in, arms folded like she'd been preparing her lines for hours. You've got too many people. Too much traffic. Too much smoke. We're calling the board. Actually, you are the board. Oh, great. HOA Karen times 2. My cousin TJ let out a slow whistle behind me, tapping his bottle of root beer against mine. Welp, they found us, he muttered. Someone in the crowd laughed nervously. Now, before I go further, let me be real clear about something. This wasn't just any barbecue. This was the annual cookout for the local firefighter academy, something we'd been hosting on rotation for years. It was our way of honoring new graduates, celebrating the end of brutal training, and letting their families see what these future heroes were made of. We had permits. We had a safety perimeter. We had EMTs on site. And yet here came the Karens. Look, ladies, I said, trying to keep my tone calm, even though my jaw was tightening. This event was cleared 2 months ago by the city. We sent out flyers. You probably got one. They looked at each other, then back at me like I just said I was running a nightclub out of my garage. We don't read junk mail, Sunhat Karen snapped. No one approved this with us, added the other. And we're telling you now, shut it down, or we'll call the fire department ourselves. At that moment, I actually laughed. Couldn't help it. Please do, I said, stepping aside so they could get a full view of the yard. They're right over there by the tent. Chief Davis is eating ribs. Try not to get sauce on your dog. They blinked. What? I pointed again, this time toward the red and white tent where a half-dozen current firefighters and 3 academy instructors were seated with their families. A few of them gave the Karens a polite wave. One of them even raised his plate, like cheers. Oh, my God, Karen 2 whispered, but the tall one didn't back down. Nope, she doubled down. This is still residential property. I don't care if you've got the whole department here. It smells like a forest fire and it's ruining my linens. I had laundry hanging. TJ raised an eyebrow. You mad because your bedsheets smell like barbecue now? The crowd chuckled. A few phones went up because of course this was going viral before the chicken even finished cooking. And then came the twist. A low rumble echoed down the street. I turned and saw a red training fire truck pulling up, followed by an SUV marked Emergency Services Academy Supervisor. Oh, sweet karma, you beautiful beast. The Karens froze. I turned back to them with a tight-lipped smile. You were saying something about calling the fire department? H this. This is an abuse of power. The shorter one shrieked suddenly, her face turning crimson. You people think you're above the rules just because you wear uniforms. This is a neighborhood, not a training camp. And just like that, the dogs were barking, a toddler started crying, and someone dropped a tray of baked beans. Chaos, but controlled chaos. Chief Davis stood slowly, brushing off his hands, walking over like a dad about to scold 2 misbehaving kids. Ladies, he said with a warm but deadly smile, do you have any idea how many code violations you 2 are committing right now by interfering with a city-permitted emergency training gathering? I beg your blocking emergency access routes, he continued, calmly, verbally harassing city personnel and falsely threatening to call emergency services. I'd say that's at least 3. And don't forget the dog poop left in my driveway last week, someone shouted from the crowd. The Karens looked around. Suddenly, they weren't on the offensive anymore. They were surrounded. I could see the shift in their eyes from righteous indignation to quiet panic. Their grip on their dogs tightened. Their breath became shallow. We just wanted the noise to stop, one mumbled. Oh, now it's about the noise, TJ muttered. Chief Davis sighed and looked back at me. You want us to escort them off the property, or? I thought about it. I really did. But sometimes poetic justice is more satisfying than paperwork. Nah, I said, wiping my hands on a towel and leaning against the smoker. Let them walk back through the neighborhood. Everyone's seen what they pulled. That's enough. A few people clapped. But then just when I thought it was over, Karen 1 snapped. She spit on the lawn. Enjoy your little redneck reunion. This isn't over. Chief Davis narrowed his eyes. You just made it worse, he said quietly. For you. Because apparently they hadn't filed their HOA annual registration properly. And their harassment today was now being added to the complaint file for ongoing misconduct. Turns out, Karma had a clipboard and a badge. 3 days later, a thick envelope showed up in every resident's mailbox, including mine. It was from the city's Neighborhood Compliance Division. Inside, a formal notice detailing a full investigation into the HOA board's conduct, complete with complaint numbers, recorded testimonies, and several photos from that barbecue day, submitted anonymously. You could see the Karen sisters mid-yell, their dogs flailing in their arms, and Chief Davis calmly jotting down notes beside them. Turns out, that little outburst on my lawn was just the tip of the iceberg. The city dug deeper. Turns out the Karens had been misusing HOA funds for months, paying for board lunches at a country club and decorative improvements that all led to their own driveways. Worse, they had no legal authority to enforce the rules they screamed about. Their term had expired 2 months ago. They just never told anyone. So guess what happened next? They got voted out. In a fiery emergency meeting, with over 70 neighbors in attendance, both Karen sisters were removed unanimously. A few brave souls even demanded a full audit. But the cherry on top, they got served. 2 shiny lawsuits, one civil for HOA fund mismanagement, and one from the city for interfering with a permitted emergency service event. You should have seen their faces when the process server walked up during their morning dog walk. One dropped her latte, the other screamed something about unconstitutional lawn terrorism. I swear the dogs looked embarrassed. And our neighborhood? We're better now. The new board includes a retired firefighter, a schoolteacher, and a single mom who actually reads the bylaws. Our next barbecue, already on the calendar, and this time, it's a potluck. So yeah, Karen tried to shut down my backyard barbecue. But she didn't know it was hosted by the Firefighter Academy, and she sure didn't see the lawsuit coming. Want more wild stories where karma hits back hard? Subscribe to our YouTube channel because some drama deserves to be grilled, flipped, and served extra smoky. Fire.